I have got the list of all of the best Dolby Atmos movies. Now, where did I get this list? I got it online from you guys. Somebody posted, they're like, what do you guys think are the best clips out there for Dolby Atmos, best movies? And everybody just launched into the comments. And I'm reading through the comments. I'm like, oh, that's a good one. That's a really good one. And I'm like, oh, I've never actually even heard of that. What is that? Uh, so then I had the idea. I'm like, wouldn't it be cool to just make a video where I share with you everything that was in this thread? So if you're looking for a movie to watch tonight, I guarantee if you're looking for something with amazing sound, there will be something on this list for you. Let's get into it. The very first movie on this list has to be Ready Player One, the famous race scene. I know you're all rolling your eyes because you've heard that a million times, but think about what would happen if I didn't mention that movie. Everybody would think I'd lost my mind. So everything that could be said about that movie and the sound has been said. Moving on. The next movie is The Batman with Robert Pattinson. This movie really surprised me. I went to see it in the theater and I was not expecting much. And it turns out that the sound in that movie is next level. It is incredible. And there are a few scenes that really stand out. And I know you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But the chase scene, when he comes out and you see the Batmobile for the first time and he launches out, it's awesome. It's awesome. If you have a rockin' killer home theater system, you have to see the Batman. Next on the list, obviously, Maverick. Top Gun. Of course, this movie, we all raved about this when it came out. Everybody watched it 100 times, and for good reason. The fight scenes, when I say fight, I mean flight, the fight in flight scenes, the dogfight scenes, when he's in the test plane at the beginning, it's just, the sound is just awesome. And I know this doesn't really get talked about much, but I really love the music in the movie because in that opening scene, it's such a throwback to the original Top Gun, which, by the way, also sounds awesome here in my home theater. I just love it when a movie gets really powerful music and just cranks it up. And so it just hits you full on in the chest. And that one does it. Next, Gran Turismo. This movie was kind of, I wouldn't say a sleeper, but I don't think many people saw this movie coming. I certainly didn't. But it turns out that it is really good. And the race scenes in this movie are fantastic for Atmos. You definitely got to check it out if you haven't already seen it. Mad Max Fury Road. This movie, I have used this movie, scenes from this movie in some of my testing that I've done in my theater where I've shown clips to people and had them, measure, or give their opinion of, how good the Atmos is or whatever, or if they could tell the difference between streaming versus the disc. And I always go, this is like my go-to movie, Mad Max Fury Road, because the sound in this movie is just awesome. I love this movie. I can't say enough good enough about it. Okay, so on this list, we also have a few Christopher Nolan films. Now, this is kind of a cheat because Christopher Nolan, and I guarantee it's intentional, but his movies on 4K do not have a Dolby Atmos mix. They are mixed in 5.1. So why am I including them on a Dolby Atmos best of list? Well, because the sound is just awesome. And I think it speaks to how good 5.1 sound can be if mixed correctly. And also, if you use an upmixer like DTS Neural X and you upmix the 5.1 soundtrack, you get immersive audio and it sounds incredible. I love Dunkirk, Dark Knight Rises, Interstellar. These movies are all just incredible when it comes to sound. And again, going back to what I was talking about earlier about the music, the music in these movies. I mean, Christopher Nolan, he just has it cranked up to 11, right? It just sounds so good. So any one of those on movies from Christopher Nolan, you would enjoy if you watched tonight. So another one on this list, and this was a highly anticipated 4K release, Heat, with Robert De Niro and Al Pacino. Unfortunately, people were a little disappointed in the picture quality, but the sound is awesome. And of course, it's the end gun battle at the end of the movie that just sounds incredible. If you have a good sound system, you're going to love it. Hacksaw Ridge. This movie is one of those that it's a war movie, and so it is exactly what you would expect the sound to be, and it sounds awesome. This movie with Andrew Garfield, it's a really good movie. I actually was really surprised. I was not expecting to like the movie as much as I did. I'd heard that it had really good sound, but that's mostly why I was watching it was for the good sound. But the story itself, the actual movie, top notch, excellent film. So this is not one that you would expect. And when I say it, you're gonna think, oh, wait a second, what? Why is that on this list? Back to the Future. So if you watch Back to the Future, the first one, in a Dolby Atmos setup, the clocks at the beginning of the movie, kind of in the opening credits, when Marty comes into Doc's house, and there's all those clocks ticking, and then they start chiming, and the alarms start going off. It is just a cacophony of sound. If you're looking for a good demo scene for your Dolby Atmos setup, that scene is awesome. If you're looking for a great movie to watch, Back to the Future, it's a classic. Baby Driver. Baby Driver is another one of those movies where I had heard a lot of buzz about it, but I wasn't really expecting much. And then it turned out to be way more fun than I was expecting. And obviously, there's a bunch of scenes in the movie that are great, but what really stands out, and the scene that I use for a demo scene to show people when they come into my theater, is the opening scene, the opening heist. So basically, at the very opening shot of the movie, up to the point when he walks into the coffee shop. And so you get a mix of both music, starts out awesome with the music, and then you go into the chase scene, so tires squealing, the overhead helicopters, all of that surround sound, and then it goes back into the music with his cool little dance number down the street. So it kind of hits all of the areas that you want when you're looking for something to showcase your sound system, and it's just a fun movie. So the whole thing is great. This one is a combo, so it's number 1 and 2, and it is A Quiet Place. A few months ago, Forrest and I, my brother, we sat down and we watched A Quiet Place 1 here in my theater, and it was the first time we had watched it here in my theater. And I had seen it previously, but this was my first Dolby Atmos experience with it. And that movie is just so good. It makes such good use of silence. You wouldn't think that silence would be something that you would be looking for in a Dolby Atmos track, but what it does is it creates a contrast between the silence, where it really ramps up the tension, and then when the sounds happen. And it's not always just a really loud sound. So it's not like, oh, it's dead silent and then it goes really, really loud, though that does sometimes happen. But it's more where it's silent and then you just hear something like brushing against something else, or just a very slight sound, and it makes that really quiet sound that much more impactful. Somebody mentioned Last Action Hero on this thread. Now, truthfully, I have not seen Last Action Hero since I was probably 13 years old, maybe. So it's been a long time. So I'm just going to take their word for it that the sound in Last Action Hero is really, really good. If anybody has any opinions on that, good or bad, indifferent, I'd love to hear it. So yeah, moving on. Speed. Now I have watched Speed on 4K Dolby Atmos here in my theater here, and as a 90s action flick, it definitely holds up. It's a great classic. It's with Keanu Reeves, Sandra Bullock, big action stars of the 90s. Actually, Sandra Bullock wasn't an action star; she was more a rom-com. But you get the point. They were top tier in the '90s. It is a good movie. It's a really good movie, and the sound here in my theater also really good. Really enjoyed it. I just have to mention, yes, I am aware that Keanu Reeves is still as big or bigger action star now than he was in the '90s. So yeah. Gravity. Oh my gosh, Gravity. This one. Okay, I made an entire video when Gravity was finally released with the Dolby Atmos soundtrack. They had done a short limited run. It was like the Diamond Lux edition of Gravity on Blu-ray, and it included the Dolby Atmos track. And then it went out of print, selling for crazy amounts on eBay. And then they released it on Blu-ray again, very quietly, with the Dolby Atmos track. I made a whole video about it. People were totally psyched about it, as was I. I grabbed it, watched it here in my theater. The Atmos track is so cool. And I don't want to hear about how it's unrealistic, because that's not how sound works in space, or you can't hear, if somebody's talking in a microphone in your ear, you're not going to hear it traveling around. I know. Movies are supposed to be fun, and it was fun. So yeah, it was fun. Okay, next one, Twister. I also made a video about this when it came out on 4K. Twister, a movie from my childhood. It was a special effects extravaganza, and they have done it justice. They have done it what it deserves with the 4K and Dolby Atmos treatment. And I watched it here in my theater, and I loved every minute of it. I loaned it to my brother Forrest, who did not watch it as a kid. He watched it, not super impressed with the movie. He did enjoy the sound, but the movie, he didn't really like it. So there may be a nostalgia element to it there for me. That's fair. But yes, if you're looking for just a good old-fashioned 90s action flick, and this one, kind of one of the pioneers of CGI, watch Twister. Into the Spiderverse. This movie, the sound in this movie is so awesome throughout, but I'm going to highlight the scene shortly. It immediately follows when he's in his bedroom and his dad is talking to him through the door, and he has kind of that awakening moment where he realizes what he needs to do, and he launches out, and the music hits, and it is just so awesome. I had some family here in my theater, and my nephew, he said, "You know what I'd really like to hear?" He says, "I want to watch that scene from Into the Spider-Verse." And I knew exactly which one he was talking about, and he was spot on. It is so cool. So cool. All right, moving on. Blade Runner 2049. Yes, Blade Runner. This is another one of my go-to movies. This movie is just chock full of incredible sound. Denis Villeneuve is a filmmaker who understands the importance of sound design. I watched an interview with him where he said that a lot of times with filmmakers, the sound design is an afterthought. They get to the end of shooting the movie and they look to see what they have left in the budget, and then they're like, okay, all right, I guess we can put that towards sound. He says, no, we start from the beginning. We begin with the sound in mind, and his movies show that. He's got Blade Runner 2049. He's got Dune 1, Dune 2, Arrival, all on this list. And they are all awesome. So I highly recommend, if you're looking for really good science fiction movies that have amazing sound and with themes that make you think and are just superbly made films, Denis Villeneuve. Check him out. 13 Hours with John Krasinski. Truthfully, I haven't seen this movie. This was on the list, but I haven't seen it. But I need to, because I've seen other people talk about it and how good the sound is. Watch it. Let me know what you think. Rogue One, Star Wars story. This is one that I have not actually seen in my theater, which is a shame because it is a good action movie. I saw it in the theater when it first came out. I enjoyed it. You know, it wasn't the best Star Wars movie. Certainly wasn't the worst Star Wars movie, but I did thoroughly enjoy it, and I do need to experience it here in my theater. Star Wars 3. This one is one of those that I would put on the lower tier of Star Wars movies, but somebody specifically mentioned that they really like the sound of the opening scene. So, yeah, if you're in the mood for Star Wars, that's another suggestion. Deepwater Horizon with Mark Wahlberg. This one is one that I have seen mentioned so many times about how good the sound is in it. I bought the movie, having never seen the movie. I still haven't watched it in my theater, but I do own it. It's on my list. I will get to it eventually. But this one, I've heard that when the oil rig blows up or when there's the fire, that the bass really shakes. And so I'm looking forward to that, and I want to check it out. If you've seen it, let me know what you think. Pitch Black. This one was on the list, and they specifically cited the first 5 minutes. Another one that I haven't seen, but I think it has Vin Diesel in it. But apparently, some people in this forum thought that the opening 5 minutes deserved mention on a best of Dolby Atmos list. John Wick. Now, I am going to include all 4 of the John Wick movies in this list. This is another one where you can't go wrong. The sound design on all of these is amazing. I see it referenced all the time. One scene in particular always stands out when he goes into the nightclub. He's shooting up the nightclub, and he's shooting out some glass panes, some glass windows. With the glass shattering, the sound, it does sound awesome. It's so well done. You can just hear the glass just falling all around you. You're just immersed in broken glass. It's like you're in there without getting cut. Another World War II film, Saving Private Ryan. This is one where I am stunned by this one. And here's the reason why. Because Saving Private Ryan was made in the 90s. This was before Dolby Atmos. And so the sound was recorded in a way that they were only thinking in, 5.1 or whatever we had, in the theaters at the time. And so it was not recorded with immersive Dolby Atmos sound in mind. But it has been remastered in Dolby Atmos. And honestly, it sounds so good, you would swear it was made last month. The sound in Saving Private Ryan is so next level. I can't even begin to do it justice. If you haven't seen that movie, oh my gosh, go watch it. And if you have seen it, you can watch it tonight and enjoy it. It's incredible. When I watched it here in my theater, it was like I was seeing the movie for the first time. It was unlike any other viewing previously. Blew me away. Here's one that I had never even heard of. When I read it on the list, when I saw somebody post it, I'm like, what in the world is that? So I had to search it. And it's Roger Waters' The Wall. And apparently it has really, really good sound in it. So I need to check that one out because somebody thought it was worth mentioning. The Matrix. Keanu Reeves, 90s action movie, but it's so much more than that. The Matrix is another one of those movies where I would put the sound in The Matrix up close to Saving Private Ryan. Basically everything I said about Saving Private Ryan, you could say that about The Matrix. Obviously it was made in 1999, pretty sure. And so they mixed it for 5.1, maybe 7.1, but now it's been remastered in Atmos and it sounds awesome. There, particularly the scene when they go into the government building at the end and the bullets, he's firing the gun and the bullets are dropping and the casings are bouncing off the tiled floor. It just sounds all around you. You're just immersed in it. And talk about a bubble of sound. And The Matrix, the movie, is just incredible. The themes in that movie, it's so much more than a science fiction action movie. It is a philosophical just rabbit hole that you get to go down. Somebody also commented with Star Wars Episode 1. Now, I assume that's because of the sound of the lightsabers, but also probably more specifically the sound of John Williams' score. I would imagine that is pretty that's pretty impactful. That would sound pretty good. Truthfully, I haven't watched episode 1 here in my theater. Kung Fu Panda. I was so surprised to see this one on the list. I love Kung Fu Panda. I've also met people who hate it. So, you know, it's kind of a gamble on that one. But apparently somebody loved it so much and they specifically cited every fight scene. So apparently in Atmos, Kung Fu Panda sounds amazing throughout the entire movie. Who knew, right? So I guess I'm going to have to go back and rewatch that one because I haven't seen it here in my theater. Godzilla Minus One. Yes, I made a video about this one as well when it launched completely out of the blue on Netflix. And I watched it in Atmos on Netflix. And even though it was streaming, it sounded awesome. It sounded so good. And that movie has gotten so much hype, but it deserves it because it's a really good movie and it sounds really good. The story is good. The special effects are great and all of that on a minuscule budget. I've seen numbers anywhere from 12 to 15 million is all they spent to make that masterpiece. And you know me, when I'm looking at something, I look at how much benefit or how good it is versus how much it costs. And Godzilla Minus One, it's off the charts. Like to produce something that good for that little amount of money, unreal. Kong Skull Island. And I'm going to add Godzilla versus Kong on this to this as well. Both of these, if you like big monster movies, these are great. With Kong throwing stuff around and fighting Godzilla, the laser nuclear beam out of Godzilla's mouth. Both of those are awesome. They're great. I use Godzilla versus Kong for demo scenes in my theater all the time. The bass just shakes. And with the bass shakers that I've got here under my seats, it just rumbles. San Andreas. This is a movie with The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. I don't think I've ever seen that movie ever, but I can imagine that it might have good sound. I don't think it was highly reviewed as far as being a good movie, but if it has good Dolby Atmos, maybe you can get some demo scenes out of it. Guns of Navarone. This one surprised me. This is a very old movie, but the person specifically cited the old boat creaking in the storm as being really good for Atmos. So who knows? Maybe there's a demo scene in there. But I would not have guessed that for a movie that is that old. I think it was made in the 60s, maybe even 50s. Fury, a movie that basically stars tanks. This movie shakes. I watched this movie in my theater. My whole house was shaking. I thought the walls were going to come down. This movie, when the tanks are shooting their cannons, the guns, the blasts are just so loud and so much bass. It is a war movie that wants to shake your teeth out, and it does a great job. Not to mention, it is actually a really good movie. It's got Brad Pitt, Shia LaBeouf. Yeah, great movie. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Jupiter Ascending. This is another movie where it's on the list, not for the movie, but for the sound. From everything, I haven't seen it, but from everything that I've heard, Jupiter Ascending is a terrible movie. Terrible story, terrible acting, terrible everything, but apparently it has really good sound. So I got it. I saw the 4K on sale for just a few bucks. So I picked it up. I'm looking forward to demoing it here in my theater, but I haven't yet. But apparently it has really good sound. So Jupiter Ascending. Lord of the Rings. These movies are just incredible. I mean, what can you say about the Lord of the Rings trilogy? I'm speaking specifically about Fellowship of the Ring, Two Towers, and Return of the King. I saw the Hobbit movies in the theater. I wasn't super impressed with those, but the original Lord of the Rings movies, so good. The movies themselves are really good, but the sound is really good too. We love watching those movies here in my theater because they just sound so good. It's like transporting us back 20 years ago when they were first coming out in the theater. So if you haven't seen those movies in a while, I want to check them out. They still hold up. Endgame. So this is a Marvel superhero movie, and Endgame, I would say Endgame was kind of the peak of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's kind of been a little downhill ever since then. But Endgame, yes, absolutely phenomenal sound, just just loud all across. So you're going to have amazing Atmos. You're also going to have thunderous bass, and it's a good story too. This is another one where the movie is not so good, but the sound is, and that is Midway. In fact, I actually featured Midway on one of my videos where I was talking about movies that are so bad, but the sound is so good. And I specifically called out Midway because the attack on Pearl Harbor is really, really good. If you can look past kind of the wonky CGI. I don't know if it was an artistic decision or a budget decision, but it does look a little weird, but it sounds awesome. The guns, when they're firing the guns and the airplanes flying, excellent, excellent sound. Overlord. This is another one that I haven't seen, but it is on my list. I've heard so many people talk about how good the sound is and also how good the movie is. So I definitely need to see this one. I don't know much about it. If I can avoid knowing things about movies before I watch them, I do. And this is one where I've specifically avoided finding out things about the movie. So I can't speak to even what it's about or even how good it is. But I've heard good things about it. I'm looking forward to seeing it. So maybe it's something you can consider. The Adam Project. This is one, it's a Netflix movie. It was made for Netflix, by Netflix. This one has Ryan Reynolds in it. A lot of people talked about the sound in this movie when it first came out. And so I rushed to watch it. And yes, it was pretty good. I think the sound is pretty good. I wasn't blown away by it. I wasn't just like, just completely stunned at how great it was. But yeah, I think it was good, and I think it deserves to be on a list of all of the good to great Atmos movies. The movie itself, it's all right. It's okay. It's Ryan Reynolds. He's all right. He's okay. And so yeah, if you're into that, you have Netflix, fire it up, check it out. Oblivion, Tom Cruise. I actually kind of really like this movie. Not just because it has really, really good sound, which it does, and it sounds so cool here in my theater. But the movie itself, the story for Oblivion, is really good. And I'm not gonna say anything about the story except to say that I enjoyed it, and I wish Tom Cruise would make more of these types of movies. I definitely enjoy his Mission Impossible movies, but I would enjoy seeing more movies like this. I'll just leave it at that because I don't want to give away any spoilers. Go check it out. Oblivion. Ghostbusters Afterlife. Yes, the opening sequence of Ghostbusters Afterlife is really, really good for Atmos. When he's got all of the lights out in the field with the traps and everything, and the monster is chasing him, sounds coming all around. It's really, really good. The movie itself, it's a fun movie, especially if you're a real big Ghostbusters fan. Super 8. This is a movie I haven't seen since it came out, and I saw it in the theater. Who knows how long ago that was? 10 years ago? 15 years ago? How long did Super 8 come out? And I haven't heard anything about it since then. But apparently, somebody says that the train crash sequence in Super 8 sounds really, really good in Atmos. Now I've got to check it out because up till now, and currently, my favorite train crash sequence is in The Fugitive, which also sounds amazing here in my theater. But apparently Super 8 also has a really good sounding train crash. And so I need to watch that and do a little bit of comparison. Bohemian Rhapsody, biopic about Queen. This movie, it's a good movie. It's a good movie. It's not a great movie. It did extremely well at the box office, but the quibbles as far as like the accuracy and how it's kind of like a biopic by the numbers kind of thing, where it's just like they hit every single beat, literally and figuratively. But the end concert in Bohemian Rhapsody is really, really good. And I actually recently, a couple months ago, I saw in IMAX the actual Queen concert from, I can't remember exactly which concert it was, but they released it in IMAX. So I went to the IMAX screen and I watched that, and that was just so over the top. I mean, we were all, I took my family to see it. We just couldn't believe it. It was like seeing Queen live, but better because you were right up there on the stage with him. So that is actually now available on 4K in Dolby Atmos. So I may have to get that, but I've already seen it in IMAX. And so even here in my theater, compared to IMAX, I might be slightly disappointed. I don't know. Now, on that same track with Bohemian Rhapsody, I would put as a better movie and better sound is Rocketman, the movie about Elton John, his life. That movie is awesome. So good. I love that movie. It shows his life, warts and all, but the music in it, they play the music and it is so well mixed. It's not thin, it's not weak, it is full, it is powerful, it is in your face, and I love it. Watch it. If you have not seen Rocketman, you've got to see that movie, and please, please, please watch it somewhere where you have a really, really good sound system and a good screen, because it's just fantastic. Now, I'm sure at this point, there are movies that have come to your mind where you're like, he hasn't mentioned such and such. It has to be on this list, right? Like, you're not going to finish this list and not have mentioned this movie that I'm thinking of. And likely, you're probably thinking of Ford versus Ferrari. It is definitely on this list. This movie is chock full of demo scenes that I use frequently here in my home theater. This movie, it is so good. The acting, it was perfectly cast. You've got Christian Bale as Ken Miles. Like how awesome is that? Like, he even looks like the guy. Like, he goes from being Batman to transforming himself. If you look up pictures of the actual Ken Miles, it is incredible how close he looks to that guy. Now, Matt Damon, he's a little bit of a stretch to Carol Shelby, but not much. But then the way they portrayed those characters was just so phenomenal and just so much fun to watch. And the sound in that movie, the race scenes, the music, this is another one where the music is just so good, mixed with the sounds of what's happening on screen. So many good demo scenes and just a fun movie from start to finish. Watch that one. You can't go wrong. Man of Steel. As a superhero movie, this one it's a good movie. A lot of people really like Man of Steel. I've actually saw it in the theater once. I haven't actually watched it here in my theater. But yes, I would imagine in an Atmos theater, it would sound awesome. And I am going to add it to my ever-growing list of movies that I need to watch here in my theater. This movie, No Time to Die. No Time to Die is not my favorite James Bond movie. That would be GoldenEye. However, No Time to Die is my absolute favorite Dolby Atmos James Bond movie. The sound in No Time to Die is so well done. They pulled out all the stops for this one. I can't even, there's too much. There's too much there to even begin to talk about. You've got to just watch it yourself. Watch it in an Atmos theater from start to finish. The sound and the music, the effects, just every element of the sound design is just so good. Watch it. I love it. Last one on the list. Oh, I should have mentioned at the beginning, these are in no particular order. There's no way I could rank these. No way. But this is the last movie on this list from this post that I saw online. And that is Edge of Tomorrow, another Tom Cruise film. This is another one that was not available on 4K, and it wasn't available in Atmos. It was only available on Blu-ray. And so I bought the Blu-ray, and it sounded really good here in my theater. But then they released it on 4K. And some people are complaining that they kind of dialed back the really low rumbly bass sound at the beginning of the movie in the Atmos track. People were complaining about that. Um, I personally didn't mind it. I mean, if you really want that loud sound, you have the Blu-ray, right? Like, just pull out the Blu-ray. But the Atmos, they remastered it in Atmos, and it is so good. So good. And this is just a fun movie. This is a science fiction movie, but it's also kind of a makes you think kind of movie. Emily Blunt, Tom Cruise, check it out. That's the list. And I'm sure you're thinking of a movie or multiple movies that I didn't mention. Put them in the comments. I'm curious to know which movies I didn't mention but should have been included on a list of all of the best Dolby Atmos movies. Thanks for watching.